Hi, I'm Benny from Tarakan Island. Thank you for visiting our city. We love you.
Oh, thanks, Benny.
Isn't that nice?
It is. That sums up Tarakan for you, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. So we are still here, of course. The last podcast, we had just arrived. We were knackered after days of no sleep, and we decided to stay and enjoy this place a bit and relax, didn't we? So yeah, we're still at Tarakan. It's Monday the 14th of March, recording on a Monday because we hope, we plan to leave here tomorrow.
Now, does that mean that we're actually going to publish this a little bit early as well?
No, we're always going to try and keep the publishing date the same, so that it will always be published on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Well, Thursday our time.
If we have connection, of course.
If we have connection, we don't really know what awaits us after Tarakan, because this is the main city of East Kalimantan. It's a port, and as we've discovered this week, it's a real busy, bustling, amazing island. And the internet is superb. One of the things we did sort out, which actually is something that cruisers or would-be cruisers often ask us, is how do you get internet?
Using the phone.
Yes.
But it's very hit and miss. Actually, I have to say, this time round in Indonesia, the internet has been really good.
Yes.
But that is because we are by a main port town, of course. So
Yes.
the reason why we're questioning whether we'll publish this on time is because the next place we're going to is down the coast. We talked last week about all the estuaries,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure that there's much in the way of development there, so it could be a bit hit or miss. And then after that we go to some atolls where I suspect we will clearly not have any internet connection, but you know, hey, that's part of cruising life, isn't it?
Well, for those following on a map, it's Derawan is the next destination, but it's a long way from here, so we're thinking we'll break it with a stop in between. But if you look on a chart, you'll see that there's a whole area where there's no anchoring at all. So it's all very up in the air. We don't really know where we're going to be on the first night. All very interesting. So going back to Benny, he is one of many, many people we've met here at Tarakan that have shown nothing but warmth and welcome. It's been amazing, hasn't it?
I think Benny was one of those 8 lads who climbed on board Esper the other night. They came past in their little motorboat and they were taking lots of pictures, and eventually I invited them on board, which is what they were vying for.
I have to say I scuttled downstairs because I just had a small top and a pair of pants on, which I didn't think was very appropriate, so you did it on your own.
Well, it was just to keep them sweet. I mean, I know some of the other guys have had local people on board, and so the usual selfies, and I got the mizzen staysail out and they're all, woo! You know, that's the least we can do, is to return that hospitality that we've received at every corner, at every turn on this island. And, you know, we're not being emotional or romantic about this. It is genuinely like this.
Yeah, and it's what we've been looking forward to and missing since the beginning of COVID. So it's over 2 years that we've been really missing this. And obviously we will do it in our main episode. You'll see everything that we've done. One of our best days was taking a car out for the whole day and doing the island. It's not very big, doesn't take very long. But we saw all different kinds of sides to the island and had a great welcome everywhere we went. And we kept saying to each other, can't believe we're doing this. It's been so long. It's
been well over 2 years, not just, of course, just before COVID, but, you know, even before we got to Sabah, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, we travelled around Sabah a bit, but to really explore off the beaten track. The last place was probably the Anambas Islands, and then before that, of course, it would have been our trip towards Jakarta, I suppose.
Yeah, and that, do you know that was 2019. That's such a long time ago since we've done any of these great long big explorations. But anyway, here we are, loving it. It's great, and we have recovered, and we're now kind of all set to go. Hello, I'm Liz.
And I'm Jamie.
Welcome to Follow the Boat, in which we discuss what it's really like to give it all up to live on a boat.
And go travelling around the world. We've been doing it since 2006, and we're still at it.
Each week we talk about our latest YouTube video.
And about boats, sailing, travel, or anything else which floats into our heads.
And if you leave a comment we like, we'll give you an answer and a name check. Peace and fair winds. We'll leave you to watch the main video when it comes out in 2 or 3 weeks' time, which will tell our viewers and listeners a whole lot more about this island. That does actually bring me on to a point that you said to me you wanted to raise, and I do agree, because I kept reading these comments. I'll just read one. Earl Ashton. What happened to your sailing vlog?
Yes, he wasn't the only one. So Chris Arnold also said, I presume that you've either motored the 400 miles or you're so bored with the sailing these days that you neglected to film any of the passage. I know that you are in the light wind area of the world and that you may have been stymied by COVID, but as a recent subscriber, I would love to see how Esper sails. More passage footage, please, if possible. So I replied to Chris and I explained that, of course, this is the podcast.
Yes, two different, completely different things.
We have two series now. You have the podcast, which comes out on the Thursdays, and our sailing vlog, which, as always, comes out on the Sunday.
Yeah.
And I think I understand some of the confusion, especially if you're new, is unless you're subscribed and you've clicked that notification bell, I think our videos, I know how YouTube works, they'll just come up randomly. So one minute you'll see us sailing and then the next episode will be, you know, us sitting around chatting, and it's probably a little bit confusing. So the answer to that is to make sure not only are you subscribed, but to click that little notification bell. So that will then remind you as soon as the video comes out.
Yes, and then it'll be chronological because YouTube will serve anything up, it feels like, at any time. So you might get a reminder to watch something that we did a year ago,
yes,
or an earlier podcast or something like that. So the other thing to do is to have a look at our playlist. We've got playlists for both the podcast and for the main season. Every episode from the beginning is one, and the other one is casting off our podcast series. And I do link to both those playlists underneath every single video.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning the video description. You spend a lot of time
Yes.
on, and it covers everything. So it covers the name of the music tracks that we use, the actual longitude and latitude of the position that the video was recorded in, and obviously the location itself, the named location. So please, for the sake of Liz and all her hard work of the video descriptions, always check out the description because there's lots in there. But I should just add, by the way, Chris then came back on this week's episode,
Which was all about sailing.
yes, and he said, sorry for doubting you. It is obvious from this video that you are really happy to be sailing again, and Esper sails great. After watching your last podcast, I thought, well, they've just sailed 400 miles, but just want to show the after passage sitting at anchor. I understand the format now. So
Good.
there we go. Yes.
Great.
Podcast Thursdays, sailing vlog Sundays.
Yes, and for anyone who only listens on the podcast, do try and check us out on YouTube, and you can see us and you can see more of our work. So that's what I think. That's what I've said. So the other thing which goes on from that is 2 or 3 comments have come in about charts and position and where we are. And again, in the main episodes, you always put charts up and you show where we've sailed from and where we've sailed to. So it's very clear. Obviously, we don't do that in the podcast because this is just an oral thing, really. But again, the location is in the description, and we do start each podcast saying where we are. Say it again, Tarakan, 14th of March.
Yes, although as a few people have pointed out, of course, the podcast is real time,
Yes.
and the vlogs are a little bit behind, but yes, you'll get a rough idea of where we are.
So there we are, that's Follow the Boat, that's what we do. Now I want to talk about episode 294, which was all about sailing. It only went up last night, so it's only been up for a few hours because we're recording this on Monday, so not a huge amount of comments have come through yet. But Susan King, I've got to mention Susan, she's a great supporter of ours. She said, joyfulness, fish, sailing, pirates, weather, negative COVID and great photography all in one episode.
Thank you, Susan.
Thanks, Susan. And Daniel Warden, another very regular commentator. Yes, indeed, it is much more satisfying when you have an intended destination. It is the difference between a full dress rehearsal and an actual stage performance. Good show, best regards. And I think that really made me think, you know. So this is what we're doing now. And what is it? What is it that we're trying to do? And what is it that brings us joy?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said it in the video at the time. After 2 years of just being able to sail up the coast and back again in between each lockdown, we are now back to doing what we're doing, why we started. I said that really badly. I will just reiterate that point. We are doing what we always wanted to do. That's what I'm trying to say.
I'd like to go back to the very beginning even before we bought the boat. What did we it's interesting to see how it's morphed over the years, how we've thought one thing and then another. I do remember when we first talked about the whole idea of living on a boat, you were really quite up for circumnavigating, weren't you?
Mm.
You're not so bothered now.
No. It'd still be nice to circumnavigate, but that went out the window quite quickly.
Yeah.
And I think it came about from, we spent 3 years in Turkey for starters. One of the reasons we spent so long in Turkey is just because we loved the place.
We loved the place. We also needed to get to know the boat and how to sail her and feel confident, didn't we?
Yes, but my point is that we would then move on to another place, fall in love with it, and spend 3 years there.
We spent nearly 3 years in India.
Yeah, and so if you're going this slowly, circumnavigating kind of goes out the window. And of course, because of COVID and because of various borders opening and closing at different times, that really has thrown a spanner in the works in terms of long-term planning. So we are now just really planning a maximum of 3 months in advance.
Yeah, with a rough idea of what we'd like to do next year, but with lots of layers of different levels of plans.
And I should just say, we have been saying our goal is Sulawesi, and actually to get over to the northeast corner to possibly get to Raja Ampat, maybe. However, I've been looking at the weather and it is full on northeasterlies all the way down that coast for at least the next week, maybe longer. So we may not be doing that. It may be, as you've said, it may be better to go down the west coast.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
You know that, and so that's how our plans are always changing. You've got to be adaptable. You've got to allow for these kind of plans to happen,
Yes.
to change all the time. But that's half the fun of it.
It is, and you don't know how you're going to feel about a place until you get there. Tarakan we had no interest in at all, and it's turned out to be somewhere we would recommend to anybody. So who knows what's going to happen yet. Yeah, and you've got to be flexible, and you've got to look at the weather. And they also, because we want to get back to Sabah, we need to have a plan of coming back as well. So we have to have a rough idea of what the weather's going to be doing to get us back so that we can park the boat up and go and see family. So it's not that we can go on an endless summer of sailing around Indonesia. Not this time, maybe next time. Yeah, I'm quite excited about making those decisions, and I like the fact that we can do either. Now there were 5 boats originally, there are now only 4 because one of our little crew of 5 boats decided they wanted to just go straight to Bitung, northeast Sulawesi, and get to Raja Ampat before they get back to Australia, and they felt that they were pressed for time. But I received a message from them, I'm just going to read this out, it won't take me a sec to find it, of what happened to them when they left us, Nunakan, wasn't it? We were on our way heading down here. We've been in Bitung for 2 nights. We had quite a tiring sail out of Nunakan as we were hit by a storm at 12:15 a.m. on the first night and our traveller snapped. We had nothing to hold our boom and were worried that we could be dismasted. It was 3.5 hours before it slowed enough for Brian to winch the boom in and a further 2 hours before we could drop the main. Now that could happen to anybody at any time, and also they were sailing the wrong way at the wrong time, which is what you're saying, isn't it?
Yes, and I think Penny then went on to describe the conditions of the sea state around that northeast corner as like a washing machine.
Yes.
1 to 2 metre swells in very confused seas. And, with these northeasterlies coming in, that's only going to get worse. So, we have to be flexible. We'd love to get to Raja Ampat, do the diving, all that kind of thing. It is one of those destinations every cruiser would love to get to. But at the same time, I'm not prepared to put the boat in great danger.
No.
I mean, as it is with these squalls, we discussed them at great length last week, we're putting the boat under a lot of strain. Even at anchor, in these choppy anchorages that we're in, we're putting the boat under a lot of stress and strain. And I don't want to extend that by going into adverse conditions. But we've always been like that,
Yes.
We've always said, well, it doesn't look particularly good going in that direction. Well, why not go in this direction, and why not?
Yeah.
I feel sometimes the only pressure comes from social media and perhaps our YouTube vlog, because we've said, we're going to be going in this direction.
Yes.
And so all these people who live vaguely in that area get excited. We can't wait to see you. And then suddenly we say, actually, no, we're going to go in this direction. They're like, I thought you were coming in this direction. We were waiting to see you. We have to put ourselves first and our safety.
Yes, what I was going to say was the circumnavigation in a certain time frame is actually easier. You know exactly what you've got. You can plan the whole thing. You know where you've got to be. You're going with the going the right way. We're going the wrong way, of course. We're going east. But if you're going the right way around the world, it is a bit of a milk run, and you know precisely where you've got to be and when. And so if we were doing that, yes, it would be easier. But we've chosen not to do that. We've chosen to sort of wobble around a bit into places that interest us. And Southeast Asia still has an awful lot to offer. And we still want to get to Japan. Who knows what will happen after that. Anyway, so yeah, I just thought that Daniel's point was quite interesting about an intended destination being the goal that drives you, and to a certain extent he is true, that coupled with flexibility.
Do you agree, or maybe you disagree? Leave a comment for us on Twitter @Followtheboat.
Talking of sailing around these areas,
Yes.
Mark Lacey says, nice to see you out sailing again. When sailing the national parks around Borneo and Malaysia, do you have to pay a fee? Now, sailing around Thailand's a bit more organised, certainly around the Phuket area.
They're very organised when it comes to money, that's for sure.
Yes, they have park rangers,
Yep.
and those park rangers will come around in their ribs if you've dropped the hook, and they will charge a fee, and it's not that much, to be honest. And if the money's going towards the maintenance of the parks, no problems
Yes.
paying it. And then that will cover you for maybe a weekend or perhaps a week within a certain area.
And you get a lovely big, beautifully printed parks ticket, so you do know it's for the
It's
park.
genuine.
It's not going into a back pocket.
Yes. The problem that we had in Sabah was the park opposite the marina. You couldn't anchor anywhere around there. And in fact, there's a dotted line around the only places that you really do want to be anchoring. And it's a bit frustrating. Now, one could argue this is because they're protecting the island, but they still allow the locals to fish around there, they dive around there. So it could be possible to set up a similar kind of system whereby cruisers pay a weekly fee to be able to anchor in the national park, or maybe to lay down moorings for us to take. Unfortunately, it's just not that well organised.
No.
We've discussed this with local people, and they say, and no disrespect to Sabah, but they do say it more than likely it will be politics.
Right.
It will be someone somewhere in an office saying, well, what do I get out of it?
Because you're not really going to get anything out of it, and
Right.
it's only a few people that are going to make use of it, a few scabby old yachties. So great for us, but do they care? Not really.
The park around Bohei Dulang, you have to get permission for, which is fine, you know, which if you know where you're going in advance, then you can register for permission, and then they'll allow you a certain amount of days to anchor, you know, at pre-designated places. So Bohei Dulang does fall within this park, and really we should have got permission when we anchored there last time, but you know, we had Eskom with us, so that was, you know, that was okay. But yeah,
I don't know what's going to happen here, because there's quite a few parks, certainly here, well, certainly in Sulawesi. There's a UNESCO World Heritage Park on the southeast corner. I'm really quite keen to go there, but who knows. A number of really good parks there as well. We'll find out, I guess, when we get there. Haven't seen anything online telling me one way or the other. So yeah, so I don't know how we got onto that. We were talking all about sailing and what we're doing and why we're doing it. So yeah, that's right. Circumnavigating was the very, very first thing we thought we'd do, and then that's changed completely. And now it's just morphing all the time. And I think what we try to say to people a lot of the time is that it's the places, the destination and the people that keep us going. Sailing itself on its own doesn't really do it for me. Like going out for a day sail, you know, oh, it's a nice windy day, let's go out and sail the boat a bit. Doesn't interest me really at all. We haven't got that sort of boat actually. I mean, you can. But what interests me is going ashore and going and checking out the places and meeting local people and understanding and getting to know slightly some new cultures.
yes. Although, I mean, I kind of agree with half of that, I think. I like the longer passages. So, you know, sailing to a destination with a purpose over many hundreds of miles, I also like, especially if the winds are in your favour.
Yes.
Now, we talked briefly about this with some of the other yachties here, and there seems to be a general consensus that they don't like sailing at night, and so they prefer doing the day hops. I'm the opposite. I like those longer trips. I don't necessarily like leaving a busy port like this at night time, especially when half the boats don't even have lights on. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, yes, it's about the people and the discovering new places by land and so on. But I think I disagree with you on doing the odd day sail.
Yes. Well, you coming from a more sailing background than me, although obviously I've been on a boat for nearly 20 years now. I quite enjoy it, but I need that purpose, Daniel. I definitely need that purpose. It really ticks my boat.
Well, Captain Harry left a comment, and again, these are comments that we've just literally picked up this morning because we've only just published the episode. I'm going to read his comment in reverse. I'm going to start with a positive. He says, "You were my very first sailing channel I followed. Thank you for everything you've taught me over the years." Captain Happy, no problems. But what he did say was, winds and weather don't often seem to be the primary factor in your plans. Do you feel that motoring is a backup or primary means of travelling? Well, we have discussed this before about the fact that Southeast Asia, and certainly this part of the world, tends to lack winds, and what winds you do get always seem to be on the nose. Now, Agnes Keith, who was an aristocrat who moved to Sandakan, where we've just been, back in the 1930s, wrote a book called The Land Below the Wind. And she titled it that for a reason, because of course, up in the Philippines where you have typhoons and lots of strong winds, down in this part of the world, we don't get so much wind. However, the reason why we're doing quite a lot of motoring, or have been in the vlog, is because we're under this pressure to move during the day with Eskom. So unfortunately, we've not really been in positions to just sit at anchor a few days and make the most of those winds and go out for those day sails that you don't like.
Yes, well, we are obviously in real time now. We are, but when you watch the vlog, we're still with Eskom, and we've got no choice. We've got a motor, but I think it's either full-on wind, often in the wrong direction, or nothing. There's nothing in between, is there? You don't get a steady blow over here like you do in the Med or in the Atlantic.
Yeah, when we think of places like Turkey, where we were in particular, you had the Meltemi, and that blew from the north to the south every day,
regular as
for 9 months of the year. And fortunately, because of the lay of the land, you were sailing pretty much east to west most of the time.
We did loads of sailing all the time.
All the time.
No motoring.
Yep, we rarely motored.
Yeah.
I remember we used to fill up with diesel, and it would easily last us a whole year. Of just one tank, because we were doing so much sailing. And unfortunately, it is just the nature of the beast around here.
Yeah. So if you're a mad keen sailor, probably not the destination for you. What would you say?
Wow.
I don't know, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we do get some good sailing, but it's remarkable. We remark upon it when it happens, don't we?
Yes. Yeah.
Difficult. So I wanted to say William Pace, yet again, left a thought-provoking comment. I'll just read a bit of it. Jamie briefly touched on something that struck a chord in my heart. I don't think most people know that every cruising sailor considers quitting at some point. It can be a very hard life at times, but sometimes, even when things are going well outwardly, you just want to pause. And that comment has come at exactly the right time, because every single boat, all four of us, have felt like that recently, haven't we?
Yeah, after the escapades from last week, which we discussed in last week's podcast. Yeah. And you kind of shut me down when I started talking about it.
Did I? Me shut you down?
Yes, yes. And I think because I was probably coming across as a bit negative, and you know, and you were thinking, oh, let's just keep this positive. But it is a subject I don't think is discussed enough among cruisers. We do put ourselves into some very dangerous situations. And, you know, it sounds like a silly comment, but when I first started sailing, when I went back to the UK to visit friends, I was full of sailing yarns and tales and telling them, getting all excited about my new experiences. Now I don't bother. Now I just leave it to the vlog, because the life that we lead on these waters is so far detached from life on land that, and I was discussing this with Lindsay, you know, sometimes we're putting ourselves in such dangerous situations that last for many hours or days, and quite often it's out of your control as well. And sometimes those situations get so hairy, they get so bad that you think, as I said last week, why am I doing this? And you can scare yourself sometimes. And when I get scared, it's when I think of all the stresses and strains that we're putting on the boat in terrible conditions and how things can break. And then my mind races off and thinks, well, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to fix that? What happens if the engine breaks down as we're having to motor around a headland with a strong current and we get pushed? So all these things go through your head. And most of the time you can compartmentalize it. But just occasionally, it does get a little bit too much.
When you get too many forces coming at you at the same time and too many conditions, I know that with the anchoring problem, Sharon said she'd had enough.
Well, now we briefly mentioned that 2 boats dragged on last week's
We'll talk
story.
about it more on the vlog.
We will talk about it more, but it turns out we only discovered only a few days ago that actually what Sharon and Lindsay went through was a proper nightmare.
Yeah.
We will talk about it more.
Yes, we'll save it for the episode.
But I can't blame Sharon for
Yeah.
thinking that she had had enough. And as you said, I think quite a few of us were we had literally just had enough of it.
Yes, we were exhausted. 4 days really without much sleep. And that's all right when you're on passage. Somehow it doesn't seem to matter, does it? Because you get the little sleep that you can, then you bounce back up and it's all go again. But this was just grinding, painful, horrible, hard work. And yes, dangerous, perhaps not so dangerous. We've been in worse situations where literally you think you might die and your skills click in and your adrenaline clicks in and you just get on with it and you try and get through it. I've found that since we've been doing this, since we've been living on the boat and doing what we're doing, that I've come quite fatalistic about things. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I think that's something that people don't talk about. You know, death is the taboo. You're not supposed to talk about death at all. But sailors look death in the face a lot. And I think we come to terms with it. Hopefully we do, otherwise we'd be nervous wrecks.
It's a good point. It's an interesting concept. I was thinking about this and came up with this concept, and maybe I'd read it before, but hero sailing.
Yes. Oh, I don't know that.
Yeah, so it was, what I was thinking was, I think that I personally sail and navigate defensively.
Yes.
I don't take risks. If there's a shallow patch, I will tend to go round it. If we're going around a headland, I will take a very wide berth around it. And a lot of this is born out from experience. From experience, you learn that if you start taking shortcuts and risks, you will put the boat in danger. So I say I'm a defensive sailor, but I know, and you do as well, and I'm sure many people listening to this podcast probably know hero sailors.
Right.
These are the risk takers. And
You mean, so if there's a very narrow channel as a way in, or a nice easy round the outside bit, they'll always go for the channel, something like that?
perhaps I'm
Put all the sails out, or
I'm thinking actually more sort of navigating. So it came about when we were looking at shallow patches.
Yeah.
And at some point, some of those shallow patches were showing 3 meters above chart datum, which basically means the minimum depth that the water would go to was 3 meters. However, I saw on a number of occasions some anomalies where the depth was getting shallower than that. So with this in mind, I knew you're going to be putting the boat at more risk by going over those shallow patches. So why not go round, and you might add an extra half an hour to your passage. But better to go round it than to possibly run aground.
yes, and also navionics, as we know, and it says on navionics, chart dating may not be accurate.
Yes.
You can't just rely on your charts.
Yeah. So my question is, are you a hero sailor or are you a defensive sailor? And I have to say, those hero sailors I know are the people that run more into trouble. They might get there a bit quicker, but I don't think being a hero sailor is impressive.
Not for longevity, no.
No.
That's for sure.
No.
Okay, well, then, yes, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that term. We're definitely not hero sailors. We don't feel the need. We haven't got an ego to the massage.
Yeah.
We don't mind being last in if there's a few boats, as long as we get there. It's the main thing. Yeah, so it is quite interesting, isn't it? This this whole adrenaline rush. We don't chase it, but sometimes it helps you get through some really pretty bad times and helps you face, potential disaster. Oh gosh, that was all a bit hairy, wasn't it? It was all a bit heavy. Should we try and line it up a bit?
You can try.
Well, we haven't got a great deal of time left, but I just wanted to say that we are drawing a line under the ambient noise issue. So no, it will not be discussed again. So there we go. But Captain Bazza says the noise passing boat is not a problem. What I do find annoying is in some videos, not yours, they play very loud music between the conversations. What is our take on music? Because it does get commented on quite a lot.
I think I answered that, and I have always said, and you can speak to experts, audio is more important than video, even in an audio-video clip.
Yeah.
By that, what I mean is that audio is obviously important when it's an audio-only thing. But if you're watching a video, you can handle watching bad video but good audio better than you can watching good video with bad audio.
Yes.
Bad audio is that for some reason your brain immediately picks up on it, whereas when you're watching bad video, your eyes just compensates for it. I don't understand what's going on in the brain to explain that, but it is a known phenomenon.
Right.
And I'm very mindful of the music. Obviously we use music, but we actually use stems. So what that means is it's the audio track broken down into its components. So the melody, the drums, the bass.
Yeah.
And you can be quite clever about how you fade out music using the different stems. So I'm very mindful of music not being put over the top of talking.
Because we're not producing music videos, they're different things, aren't they? You have done some chill out videos which are great fun, and that is about the music and the pretty pictures. I agree, I much prefer the ambient sound of the water to music thumping, and I think that we use less music than we did originally. Do you think that's true?
Yes, I think so. I should say though, because some people in the past, not recently, have said, why are you putting music over the sailing clips? Well, that's quite simple. That's simply because the sailing clips probably had a lot of wind in the audio, so I couldn't actually use the audio that I'd captured. So that's why that happens. Can I just going back to sort of sailing technical things? A few people have been asking about the flashing strobes that we have. And I'm just trying to flick through my notes here, but I can't find them.
I just answered one of those.
Neville Desmond said at the end of his comment, strobe, ?
Yes.
Kent Fletcher, congrats on getting underway. I have to ask, what's the strobe light above the radar arch for? Was this added for the purpose of this group transit with the escort service? Thanks and fair winds. The strobe is a very common light that you'll see on pretty much every single local vessel here at night time.
Shall we just explain for the listeners what we're talking about here? So normally when you say strobe, we've got three colours flashing away on the back of the boat, on the boom of the mizzen, is that right? Sort of. So we've got that, and we've got an orange strobe light at the front, as well as our anchor light.
Yes. And every local boat will have these at night time. So they are using these instead of an anchor light. And there have been cases where sailing yachts have been crashed into because they're running an all-round white light at the top of their mast, and they've not been running flashing lights at eye level, because most of these local fishing boats are going to be looking for flashing lights and not an all-round anchor light at the top of the mast. So as a consequence, cruisers have taken this on board, and you'll find almost every cruising boat now also has flashing lights.
Some don't even use their all-round white light.
Well, now that is a bone of contention for me, because if you look at the coal regs specify, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here because I don't know all the coal regs, they're very big. The coal regs, for those who don't know, are the collision regulations. And this is a set of criteria or documentation that is widely acknowledged to be the rules internationally. And they stipulate at night you should have an all-round white light. And some cruisers don't run their all-round white light at night. And I say to them they might want to check their insurance documentation.
We definitely have to keep ours on. That's
I
for sure.
think every insurance company will stipulate an all-round white light. If you get crashed into at night time and you are not running an all-round white light and you only got flashing strobes on, I suspect the insurance company will not pay out because you didn't adhere to the coal regs.
So if you do what we do, which is both, so we have the anchor light and we have the flashing lights, hopefully the insurance company will be happy because no one's going to run into you. The other problem for the local boats is they're not used to yachts. They're just not used to seeing us. I mean, we're certainly around here, they never see them. So why on earth would they be looking up in the air for a white light? So what you're trying to do is not get crashed into.
Yes.
And if you can do it, however you can do it. I mean, sometimes we have, even in the past, left a white light in the cockpit on as well. So, you know, really floodlighting ESPO if we think we're in potentially dangerous waters. And we're not just saying it, we know boats that have been, we personally know boats that have been crashed into.
Yes, and don't expect the fishing boat that crashes into you to hang around and hand over
Yeah.
your insurance details.
way.
They'll do a runner.
Yeah, it's up to you then. So that's the reason for doing that.
On a separate subject, I have to apologise to you.
To me?
Yes.
Why?
I felt very guilty about this, and then someone picked up on it.
What was that?
Shutting you down on your fishing stories.
Oh, yeah.
I feigned boredness, didn't I? I said, "Oh no, not another fishing story," and I was being unfair because I do love your fishing stories.
You love my fish, that's for sure.
That's right. And Tony Hinson said, "We love a fish story. Most cruisers I know do fish. We're with you, Liz."
Oh, thank you.
So Tony, you're absolutely right.
Yes. Okay, well, as long as I catch fish, we will be filming them and we will be talking about them. In fact, you will not stop me talking about them. So let's hope maybe we get something between here and Tarakan. That would be good. We need another fridge in the fish.
Yes.
Or maybe a fish in the fridge would even be better.
I think we'll go for the latter, yeah.
One thing I just want to finish on, unless there's anything else you've got to say on the fish.
No, not on the fish.
All right, go on then.
But no, I just wanted to pick up on DSS. I don't know what their name is, and they say you both are adorable and I love you, which is great. But what I liked about their comment was, "I am just beginning my adventure with my little sailboat. Every minute with her is an absolute joy, a dream come true for the rest of my life, and learning so much from your experiences." And I just wanted to say, we often get comments from people who have just started out on their sailing adventure, whether it's just weekend sailing or as cruising liveaboards. And we love hearing from it. It fills us with joy.
It really
So if you are a new sailor and you've just bought a boat, then please do let us know.
And you know we've had people that started like that and now have got their boats. It's fantastic. They've gone from it was a dream and now I've got it and I've followed you all the way through. We love those comments, as you say. Keep sending them in. I'm going to finish on one practical question that was asked by Deborah Taylor.
Oh yeah.
Can you please help me? I see you have wonderful fly screens. Well, they're not, they're shades, but anyway. I get terribly bitten even in my garden in the UK. How do you survive the terrors of bug bites? And how do you escape or deter them?
Sorry, I'm just laughing because we last night sat at the dinner table and Sue on Icy Red told us a story about how she was bitten by a rat.
Yeah, I know, on her toe.
Lying in bed, and this rat literally just climbed up her bed and bit her toe, unprovoked.
So I wouldn't worry about the garden stuff you're getting in the UK. I've never heard that before. That's very strange. Get bitten by while you're alive. But it is a very good question, and it is a problem, definitely in the tropics. There are mosquitoes and midges everywhere you go. We don't use netting because we decided long ago when we tried it, it just enclosed the boat, wasn't going to work, so that was no good. We knew we'd have to face them at some stage when we get out, so I carry spray with me at all times, skin spray for mosquitoes, so wherever we are, if we feel them, round your ankles normally under the table, we spray ourselves. In the evening in the cockpit, even though we haven't taken the boat ashore for ages, we're still getting midges and mozzies on here. They're living here somewhere and they'll come out at a certain time in the evening. So you tend to light one of those mosquito coils and I'll put spray on. Covering up as well, cover up, wear clothes. You just have to be mindful of it and do all the sensible things.
Yeah, I disagree with everything you just said. Yep, I think the amount of mosquitoes that we were told about hasn't come to fruition. We do not see half as many mosquitoes, especially at anchor where you have a breeze. And of course, for those who don't quite understand, generally as a rule when you're at anchor, the nose is always pointing into the wind, which means that if it's not raining, you keep everything open rather than trying to close everything down with fly screens and what have you. If you keep everything open, the breeze will always keep the mosquitoes at bay. Now occasionally, you're right, they do tend to hide in the cupboards during the day, and so we do light the odd mosquito coil. I think we find them more ashore when we're sitting in restaurants.
Oh, I agree with you, yes. I think Deb was talking about both. You know, it's on the boat and ashore, and they are a concern. Now, they're less a concern for you because they have to burrow through a great carpet of hair to get to your skin.
This is true.
But they don't with me, they just land. So I definitely get bitten a lot more than you do.
Yes.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it is something you have to think about, but I wouldn't go with screens.
Well, we made our own curtains. Do you remember? We actually had some curtains, full-length curtains.
Yes.
You put fishing weights in the bottom, didn't you?
Yeah.
Stitched them in. You spent ages making it.
Like being in a four-poster bed, wasn't it, with this fabulous curtains?
No, it was like being in a bloody sauna. Because once you put up those screens, the air can't move. And then, as you said, all you end up doing is actually trapping the mosquitoes inside, because guaranteed there will be at least one that you don't get rid of. So me personally, I don't think fly screens are a great idea, but I think that's partly because most of the places we've been, they haven't been too bothersome. Yes,
and we don't take anti-malarial tablets, which we tried once and they drove us crazy.
Yes.
So you just have to try and not get bitten in malarial areas. Okay, I haven't got anything else to say, so I'm going to...
That's unusual.
I know, well, I've got lots to say. Never cover everything I want to cover. It's our day before we leave, so I've got lots to do, and I'm sure you have too.
So I still am not sure how we're going to get this podcast out if we're about to go offshore. So I think the first thing I'm going to do actually is start planning our route and having a look at possible anchorages for the coastline that we're about to go down, because as you say, a lot of it we aren't supposed to fish.